Bro, it's good to see you again. Good to be back living in your neighborhood.
Yeah, dude, welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
You're in this brand new, beautiful building. I mean, gorgeous view. Lights coming in, a little bit diffused, but it's beautiful window view. It's nice to be here, dude. Thanks for having me over. New spot's looking great. Third time's a charm. Can't believe I've been on this for the third time now.
Yeah, you're the only person that's going round 3.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking about the fourth and what we're going to talk about.
Dude, you got to live in the present moment.
I know, you're right.
I'm kidding. Yeah, so I got a couple bullet points to talk about. Just generally want to get an update on where, like, you both in your business, personal life, kind of mindset update.
Yeah.
What you've been thinking about, but maybe just talk to me about, what's been on your mind recently. How are you doing? Since I think we last chatted, just to set the context a bit for this conversation, who people weren't part of that conversation.
Yeah.
We were talking about like the early times in COVID, like you were losing some clients, things were like,
that's right.
You were kind of like making some shifts, like in-person events were getting shut down, I think, when we did those pods.
Yeah.
So, fast forward a couple months, it seems to me like you've bounced back really well. So I think one of the things I'd love to get out of this conversation is just like how you've handled this whole year and generally just like running a business during this time. Not easy.
Yeah. I mean, it's been unprecedented and I don't have a lot to compare that to. Obviously I've only been running a business for 2.6 years, 2.5 years, 2 years. And
why do people keep
2 years and 6 months?
It's like a kid, you know, my little babies.
Yeah.
Someone said the other day, I've had a business for about 2 1/4, 2 2/3, somewhere in there. Like,
yeah, it's like a baby. I have its birth certificate in a little envelope in my drawer.
Oh, maybe that goes to how you treat it, man.
I know. Yeah.
It's like a little,
it's my baby. But no, I think the entire time my mindset has just been every day, I'm just going to take every day as they come, you know? I'm not going to try to plan out what's going to happen here. I'm not going to try to forecast, you know, how the pandemic is going to affect my clients in specific. I'm just going to educate myself as best as I can on their specific situations on an ongoing basis and do the best I can to continue to provide value. And I think the most important thing that we did during that time was just kind of forget about the money and just focus on the client themselves. Forget about charging, forget about, you know, whether it works financially or not for them to be able to keep us around, and just stick around and offer value through the tough time. And I think that's what we did for a good number of our clients. A lot of them, we paused fees and we just kind of said, hey, you know, use us, tell us what we can do to help from a digital perspective right now. Obviously we could come in with some recommendations too. We went out and offered some free work to people around. We were fortunate enough to be able to do so. And they took us up on it. And so we stayed busy that way and just kind of filled our cup with giving back at that time the best as we could and continue to in a way. But yeah, I guess boil it down to just took it day by day.
So you leaned into what you were doing rather than be like, oh, this is not working in some ways. Like, let's back out of it and go do something else.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Just were like, no, we're going to stick with it. We're going to keep doing what we know works.
Yeah. Double down. And at that time, I guess when we were podcasting last in February, we did immediately lose work that revolved around in-person happenings, right? So like we worked with a nightclub, immediately stopped working with the nightclub.
Right.
We had worked with a jeweler. The jeweler had to close, stopped working with them for a period of time. So all of like the physical retail in-world, you know, brick and mortar type clientele, we saw a downtick, but we saw a simultaneous uptick in both the existing clients, like work load with them, and then new opportunities just around bringing people and these clients into a more digital realm. I mean, people I think felt this kind of fire under their ass to, now's the time, if not any, to go digital, you know. And if I'm not selling my products online, I should start to do that ASAP. If I'm not, you know, executing a robust social strategy on the organic side, I need to get some content and get some posts up ASAP. Yeah. You know, because
I mean, it was urgent before COVID, and then
it was urgent.
Everything went digital, and it's just like,
yeah,
some people got left in the dust hardcore.
Exactly. Just expedited.
Other companies that were already on just benefited a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then we kind of saw that kind of trickle into what we do as well. Just the you know, those companies that doubled down, we got to be a part of that doubling down, and those companies that were new to the game, we got to be part of those conversations at times too. So, yeah.
So you last year, starting the year, you had 1 employee, and now you're hiring more and you're growing.
Yeah.
Generally, the whole business model around like social media marketing. This guy hit me up, I don't know, Instagram the other day. Sometimes I would be like, what's the pitch here? Just because sometimes when someone hits you up like, oh, we have this new thing, and I'm like, okay, tell me like why are you putting your life energy into like contacting me about this?
Right.
Like, what is in it for you? And this guy was like, have you ever heard of SMMA? Like, we help you get your business started, and like you basically pay this dude who's like some online consultant with 1,000 followers or something like that, and he's like basically selling someone else's information on how to like start a business like this.
Yeah.
Did you ever use any sort of like actual information, or how did you start your business? Because we're going back a little bit, but like where did you get
any actual information to start with? Just hearsay and myths and metaphors. Yeah. No, I did use some actual information, but never anything from people like that.
Not like a class or like a.
Well, I mean, that type of stuff is so prevalent out there where people are contacting you and saying, 6-week course.
Start landing 5-figure clients in a month.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, here's the top 5 secrets that no one ever told me that's literally going to make you $5 million by June of 2021. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're someone who actually reads into that and says, whoa, what's going on here? You're an idiot, so never listen to people like that. But there's a lot of books, and there's a lot of people selling like e-courses and books like that on agencies that are reputable people, I would say. Did I do some of that? I definitely read some books, but I was at an agency, and I think just being at an agency and seeing its flaws and seeing how it worked from the inside out was all I needed to go out there and do something that was very similar in model, but kind of worked. I really tried to shore up the parts that were issues with my agency at the other agency, if that makes sense. Like the problems that I found there, I wanted to make sure that they never happened with what I was doing.
Like what types of problems?
Well, I mean, the size they're completely different. Like, I was a 50-person agency. I now have a 4 looking for a 5th person agency. Tiny, right? You can't compare them exactly in scale. But I think the biggest thing was like, they just had no regard for letting their employees be remote or have kind of own their own responsibilities or just be adults. It's like, they had to make sure you were there at 9:30, and if you weren't there at 9:30, you're there at 9:35, you're going to probably have a sit down with a manager, and they're going to waste 15, 20 more minutes of your day telling you why you shouldn't have been 5 minutes late.
That's a little too much.
Yeah. And so in the beginning, I really wanted, to be able to have business and lifestyle and combine them. And that's kind of what Nectar Social really kind of teeters on, especially for the guys that work with us. And it's really just, hey, get your work done when your work needs to get done, and if you want to go for a 2-hour drive in the middle of the day and go hang out with your girlfriend or whatever, do it. Like, as long as you feel like your work's going to get done on time, I don't so we're completely remote now, and that was kind of a thing where that's an example of that, right? Like, I saw from the inside some of the issues that I didn't like, and I wasn't going to carry them into my agency. But back to your question, I think there's a lot of good books. There's a lot of courses out there. I would just say do research on who the people are behind them, and whether or not they actually have any reputable reason to be saying what they're saying. There's a lot of wishy-washy bullshit out there.
A lot of wishy-washiness. Yeah. Same thing with photography and film, and you can buy as much stuff online as you want, but if you don't understand the basics of photography and editing, and like, it doesn't matter what preset look that you buy. Like, a lot of people buy presets, or they buy different like little plugins for these different softwares.
The people who they feed off of are the people who don't ever look within themselves to find the answers to their issues or the answers to their potential success or the route. They are the type of people that are quickly like, that's going to be the thing that propels me forward. And then when that's not, they don't change that mindset. It's the next thing. It's like, okay, well, this course is going to be the thing. This product is going to be the thing. And nothing ever happens because they're too focused on these outside. You're just getting sold to and consuming at the end of the day.
Dude,
you know
you're
what I
getting
mean?
philosophical on me early. Yeah. Because this goes deeper than just like purchasing stuff for like trying to start a business. Like, this this is life, you know, like we're all constantly being sold things and buying things that we don't really need. And ultimately, like, yeah, that's the whole consumerist society that we've got going here.
Yeah, man. It operates on one of those key pillars of consumerism, which is, you know, you either tell people how to make money, tell people how to feel better, look better, be healthier, or tell people how to get the opposite sex. Sex sells, right? Those are the three biggest things. Attractive. I mean,
that's like, they teach you that in marketing class, like in 6th grade, sex appeal.
Right.
So they would give you an advertisement and be like, what type of marketing is this? And it would either be, like design or function or like something like price based or sex appeal. Like they would do these things with car commercials where they'd have like a big car, big truck, and then in the corner there'd be like a little dancing girl or something like that.
Yeah.
They track where men's eyes go straight to the little like dancing. It was like a silhouette, like a Dodge Ram.
Yeah. I got to get this truck.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
This is a pretty cool truck.
Yeah. Interesting. So I wanted to ask you today, we got a lot to go through, but about how you apply, what's your relationship been with creativity in your business? Did you always see building your business as a creative act, and how, like, I want to ask you about your kind of relationship with creativity outside of that as well.
Yeah, I've had this, that's an interesting question. I've had a weird relationship with creativity. I feel like, I think creativity, you're always kind of asking yourself, am I a creative, or am I creative, or am I not? And typically I think the outside answer is, of course you are. Everybody's creative in some way, shape, or form. But I guess it's like its relevancy in my life has just been in waves. When I was a kid, I couldn't see very well, and before I got contacts or glasses or anything, I would draw a lot, and I draw like super close to the paper, like pen and paper, and that's how my mom realized that I probably needed glasses. But I used to draw as a kid, and I was good at drawing, so that was my first kind of I'm creative, you know. And then after that, going into school and kind of going the business route and all that, you kind of lose some of the creativity. And then I guess going back into the agency world, I was around a lot of videographers and a lot of photographers and a lot of animators and just insanely creative people. And that kind of re-sparked that fire within me. Now, I don't really wield a camera, and I'm not the best photographer, and I'm not a great video guy. I have creative ideas, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about.
I think I have creative like problem-solving solutions. I think I have creative ways of looking at things when maybe some people would see kind of like a big wall in their way, I could like kind of think of what potential ways around it or above it or whatever. I think that's kind of where my creativity lies now, is just being creative in business solutions. But
so what's your process like coming up with creative ideas for campaigns, or like creative ways to help people unblock themselves in their work that they're doing, that are working with you, like stuff like that? So kind of like, what's the dynamic looking like these days?
That's a hell of a question.
Talk to me about it.
Where do I even start, bro?
Sorry, I'm all over the place with that one.
What's the dynamic looking like these days?
What's the social, Nectar Social doing, you know? What are we doing? Pull back the curtains and tell me about it.
You just want to know the secrets.
I just don't want to know, dude.
You want me to tell you juicy secret?
Yeah. You fired, no, I'm kidding.
No, I don't really have anything. I don't know. The one thing that I thought of was that I'm walking around in the mornings now.
You go for walks in the morning?
Nice. That's my answer, dude.
That's awesome.
So I go for walks in the morning now.
And now your business is crushing it.
Yeah, and things are great. The first thing I do, instead of looking at my phone now, is I get up and I get a little coffee and I pour it in a thermos, put a top on it, and I go outside and I walk for like, I don't know, 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
Yeah.
Nice.
I listen to music and I just walk around and get some fresh air, get the blood flowing.
Yeah.
I don't let my day consume me. I don't let, I don't get on Instagram first thing, let it consume me. Although sometimes I still do. But first thing I do is try to consume part of the day and go on a little walk. So that's been great. I just wanted to tell you that.
Yeah.
More than anything.
I mean, one of my questions is for sure kind of like what's been recent in terms of your like daily practices and things that's been helpful in like keeping your mind right and body right.
Yeah. I think just like not doing the exact same thing every single day. Like I'm lucky enough to have a couple places I could work, and I could work from a coffee shop, I work from home, I could go to the office. I think every day is a little bit different. I like to kind of, I don't want to be so regimented. I think that's another big thing for me too, is because then I have something to look forward to. I have this like idea that, hey, maybe today is going to have its own little like unique areas or environments or circumstance, whatever. And that excites me more than like going into an office or walking into an office, you know what I mean? And leaving. So that's kind of my next thing I'm thinking about now, is just kind of continually mixing things up and not letting things get stale or stagnant, kind of churning that positive energy in that way. But yeah, I think with back to the creativity question, I hire creative people and they do the real creative work. You know what I mean? I think, again, back to the creative side that I bring is just understanding the business itself a lot more, being from, there from the ground up and really entrenching myself in it. And being able to offer those creative solutions. I can't really think of the best examples.
Well, I've worked with you and I know how it works. Like the videographer will be saying, okay, let's take this shot of, let's say, a guy pushing a stroller with a kid.
Oh yeah.
And then you're like, the product, some of the challenges.
Great product, by the way.
Should I mention the name?
Nah, I didn't mention the name, but it was just probably one of the worst products ever.
I think that was the last one I did with you. Yeah, that was funny. Anyways,
I think it just kept falling out.
It like didn't work that well.
Yeah. Oh
wow.
My God.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, we're gonna go back to this part of the conversation, like in terms of doing free work. I think I'm always interested in like how other people have like grown into like the roles that they've created for themselves, the business in your example. But yeah, to round that idea out, it was like you're able to see how someone's shooting something like from a creative standpoint that way, not necessarily hold the camera, but you're right there and you're saying, at least, I don't know if you're always on all your shoots, but like you're able to say, okay, the client has these needs. They're telling me that certain features on the product are selling in certain audiences on whatever social media outlet it might go out on.
Yeah.
And so you can bring those ideas to the solely creative person who's putting things together, storyboarding and actually making the sequence.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to just if you're a photographer or a videographer, it's great to have somebody not necessarily like on your shoulder talking into your ear at all times, but someone that's like a ways out of it a bit creatively, like in terms of the actual shooting of the content, but is more involved in like the planning of the content and has the shot list, and it's like keeping you on
a
task.
Producer,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think with what we do too, the client is always at these shoots. A lot of times, the shoot that you were talking about earlier, the client wasn't there. But when the client's at the shoot too, it's always good to have like a wrangler, someone that's diffusing the conversation away from you and just like communicating with the client, talking about what we're doing here, versus like if it was just a photographer or videographer alone with the client there, it's like you just got someone breathing down your neck the entire time and like, well, what are we doing? Like, what's the idea here? Blah, 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 so. Yeah. I don't know how it got to this. You just
brought me back to a traumatic shoot that I had a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It got to the point where I was almost like, you take the fucking camera and shoot the shot yourself. Like
I can see.
I was almost there. Like I was trying to do my job.
Yeah.
Trying to bring my creativity to what they want.
Yeah.
And it was just like, they'd be like, no, don't shoot it like that. Change this. I was like, wait, so what am I here for? You know? Anyways.
Yeah. No, I know it's
triggered, memory triggered right there.
Yeah.
But you honestly, you have to have those bad experiences in order to understand how important it is to work with people that you trust and you know how they work and know how they operate.
Absolutely.
Like you can deal with a lot more challenges with people that you're just like on the same page as, whereas like if one little challenge comes up in a shoot with a client that already is pissed, it's like the end of the world.
Yeah. I mean, there's some people who are never going to get out of their own way. And it doesn't matter who's there, who's involved, who's helping, you know what I mean? If at the end of the day, the shot caller is not getting out of their own way, like this business owner, whoever you're working with, it's just not a fruitful situation for anybody. You should figure out a way out of it. You know what I mean? Those just aren't good. There's good clients, there's bad clients, just the same as there's good service providers and bad service providers. And as a person in the service industry, like going out and shooting, you really got to be careful whether you're stepping on a bad apple or not, because if you do, it's a lot more detrimental to you as a small business than anything. You know what I mean? You gotta be careful.
Absolutely. Let's transition back to talking about working for free and that whole concept, because the transition point is like I've done a lot of work for free. Why don't you kind of like explain your perspective on working for free and then we can talk about some of the pros and cons. Like there's
Yeah.
things to be wary of, which I'll talk about, and also huge benefits that I think both of us have experienced.
Yeah. I think working for free, it is this crazy double-edged sword. And what I've noticed is where you get burned is when people ask you to work for free. But when you offer services for free to people who you want to offer free service, like if you're the one, you should be the one choosing. Because at the end of the day, you're offering the free service, right? I think the people who take advantage of you are the people who sell you the snake oil, which is, right now we just don't have a lot of budget, but like, in 5-6 months, we're doing this, and this. We're going to be probably raising some funding. We really see this taking off, and we understand right now that you're at the ground floor. You're really a part of this thing, and we love to make sure you're taken care of at that point. So, right now, if we'd love to if we can do this for free, we're going to make sure you get taken care of later. Watch out for that. That can be a landmine in my experience. That's such an easy thing to say to somebody. And it applies to whoever in whatever situation. You know what I mean?
And someone who's young and hungry and optimistic will say, oh, wow.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I do believe in them and whatever.
Yeah. I've been burned every time that I've heard that. I have not ever seen a dime and those people go away. And that's okay. I just think that, from my experience so far, when I'm able to say, wow, that's something over there that's happening that I really admire and I want to be a part of, I know the way in is to potentially offer some free services, because right now maybe they can't afford it, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But like, I don't care. I don't care what the situation is. I really admire what's happening here. I'm going to go in and say, hey, I want to do this for you, and I want to do this for free, or I want to do this for a discounted amount. That's when it works is in my perspective.
How do you transition from working with someone on a free basis? Because the other side of that sword is like, oh, you're willing to work for free, your work must not be worth that much.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that?
That's the other thing too. Yeah. And I think that's also kind of just an internal block for people. It's like, I just went out and I'm doing my own thing now. I can't give my shit for free anymore. I'm worth way more than that. Right. It's like, yeah, you are. And that's fine. And don't lose that, the way that you value yourself, of course. But understand that, there's so much more value that you can provide on the outside of working for free, if that makes sense. Like there's a potential. Okay, let me step back. There's not these situations to work for free. You have to be very calculated about them, right? I think there's like framework that you could put in, like it has to be for someone that you really admire, right? Or for a company that to you is doing amazing things and you really want to be a part of them for some reason. Or you think that, if I could get in and showcase what the work that I did for this group or this person, this is going to make an amazing case study and be able to prove value down the line for me. Right. So I guess you just kind of have to play it a bit forward. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. A lot of good stuff in there. I work with a nonprofit organization on the board, for example. Once a month, we have an hour-long phone call. I do some other work. We have other calls and other things, and it's a limited amount of time for me, but the cause is around mental health. I'm wearing the shirt. Shout out to the Scooty Fund. The cause is to destigmatize mental health and basically help other people realize that like they're not alone in the mental challenges that they're going through. Yeah. And so that like drives me. That's like an obvious yes, like when they offered me that, I was like, man, I'm busy. Yes, I want to be doing more paid work or working on something for myself, but this is an organization that I want to be a part of, help them grow. I think I can add value. Boom, it's a yes, Yeah. The other thing, which I was kind of alluding to, and I've mentioned on a few podcasts, but because we're talking specifically about working for free, I'll briefly touch on this story that I worked on, this documentary film.
Oh, yeah.
And I just basically got burned. I put my heart and soul into it, spent a lot of time working on this thing. And I just, as soon as the production started, which is the actual like shooting part of the film, 18 months after I joined, and like basically, did a lot of like the writing and pre-production and kind of like helped get some funding and stuff like that. The minute the production started, the director, his entire personality changed from like a supportive mentor to like like a brutal, like boss, brutal dictator. Dude. Yeah. Like it was pretty dark, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I was treated like a grunt, like even worse, like Hollywood in the 70s or 60s, whatever. And so
just flashed.
I basically was like, this is, you know, at first I was like, this is a huge waste of time.
Yeah.
I spent so much time. We ended up traveling for like 6 weeks. He never paid me. That was the whole thing. It took him 2 years to pay me. So he paid me last 2 weeks ago. But eventually, after like so much time and negative energy of my life going towards this issue that basically resulted because I trusted this guy to just like deliver on what he said he was going to do. It was like one of these situations where I joined, I did this work. He said, you're doing great work. We're going to give you this title, co-producer. You're one of the producers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We get to start filming and he's like, oh, you're a PA. You're an associate producer and a PA. Like you're not a co-producer. I'm like, dude, so you're just changing my title for like what, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just basically I had a horrible experience, but looking back on it, I ended up going to Nepal, meeting a big mentor of mine now, Clarence. Good things came out of it, but I just learned super hardcore not to just trust like someone. It's like I met this guy at a screening of his film, and I didn't actually like really know him that well. But if I had done my research and actually talked to people, there's other people that he didn't pay and other people that he had burned, and I should have seen the writing on the wall earlier. Yeah, but I didn't. So.
It's a learning experience. And it's a great experience at the end of the day. It's what that is.
And I was at a point in my life where it was the perfect time to learn that lesson. I was 23, still living at home, not in too many, like, I wasn't in a bad, tough financial position. Yeah. But there was other guys on the documentary that were like, yeah, man, that was my kids' Christmas gifts this year. Like, I'm not able to get my kids Christmas gifts because this guy didn't pay us. So yeah, it was.
What a fucking asshole.
Once you get into this world of like being a self-employed person or like working with small businesses, you realize like, these companies, like if someone doesn't come through on a contract and you have to go through like a year or two, like it can really set you back.
It's real stuff. Yeah, it can set you back. And I don't think that's a valuable lesson that I think a lot of people just have to learn on their own naturally. And you can hear like things that we're talking about after having gone through those circumstances ourselves and saying like, watch out for X, Y, and Z, and make sure you don't get solicited, but solicit free work. At the end of the day, I think you just have to go through it and experience it, to be able to actually understand what it means.
I'm changing the cam.
Okay.
Sorry to throw off your.
That's all right, dude.
But yeah,
no, I wasn't really.
You do. You have to. I mean, that's the downside of. Anytime you share some story or some experience that you have on a podcast or in some sort of like format, just to try and like help other people learn. Some people are going to resonate with it. Yeah. Most people are not going to really resonate with it. Unless that's the whole thing about storytelling. Unless you really tell a good story and explain, more people can resonate. That's why I love stories. But I don't know.
Tell stories.
Let's tell some more stories.
Yeah. Let's stop talking about these hypothetics and actually root it in something. Like you told a good story.
Well, yeah, you told a good story the first or second time you were on the pod about how you kind of like overworked yourself and ended up like in the hospital and just like. Yeah. Basically had like a heart palpitation or something like that. Yeah. I'm not going to make you tell that whole story again.
No, yeah. I was just stressed out. Way too stressed out. I was subscribed to the whole Gary V type mantra, at the time, which was you got to work 12-hour days, when you get home from work, you got to go to work, like that whole thing. And which is so wrong on so many levels. And I just kind of forgot about how important it is to focus on yourself and how much more productive and successful and all of those things you're looking for you will be if you spend every day, a portion of every day, on thinking about taking care of and doing things for yourself. And I wasn't doing that. So therefore I am now walking in the mornings there, hence some of these other little things that I'm just doing to take care of myself.
What else?
All right, what else do I do? I'm reading. I read books.
That's huge.
Yeah, I never read books. I love reading books though. Let's see what else. Trying to sleep a lot more.
I was gonna ask.
Get good sleep. Of course, staying out, and athletic and outdoors.
Moving and grooving.
Yeah, I'm staying athletic and outdoors, dude. But couldn't grab the words I was looking for there. But just moving and grooving. What about you? What do you do? to keep your head in it.
Well, I 100% subscribe to the idea that you need to give yourself time. I've heard it articulated really well that the more time, or the time that you give to yourself, is actually also giving time to the people around you in your life.
Yeah.
Like by me going outside, going for a walk, getting a strong bike ride or workout or something.
Right.
Been bouldering.
Yeah.
We live like 5 minutes from Seattle Bouldering Project, so that's been fantastic. And those times, like, I treat them as like almost like part of me being able to operate from like a business standpoint and also in personal relationships.
Yeah.
I know that I'm at my best when I've given myself enough time, to the point where I'm not like, it'll happen where I'll work like a lot of hours and then I'll go straight into like talking to my girlfriend about something, or like straight out to dinner, or like without any time for myself, just to kind of like transition and decompress.
Yeah.
And then I'll notice myself a little bit more irritable, a little bit less present in the moment.
Yeah.
So
those stresses just permeate through you as
Right.
an individual and get on other people at the end of the day if you don't take care of it and do something about it, which for a lot of people, is going for a bike ride, walking, all these things.
Yeah. I'm living right now pretty aligned with kind of like my values, my kind of like passions.
Yeah.
So I feel that I'm not wasting time, which is a big source of a lot of stress that I have, is like, oh man, you're doing something. It's like not really what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
Because I am well aware of the precious ephemeral nature of our lives.
Yeah.
And, just trying to make sure I make the most of it. Had a lot of time to reflect back in Mexico the last 4 months. So I'm coming back to the city, and I guess I was one of the bullet points I was going to ask you about. It's like seeing the pace of life change from down there to up here, like kind of along the lines of what we're talking about, keeping the batteries charged.
Mm-hmm.
Can be harder with a faster pace of life, because you can just be going like one thing to the next. And then you start to say productivity is getting so many things done per day. You start to base how well the day went or how you felt about the day and yourself on that level of productivity.
Right.
Whereas down there, we didn't think about that much.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what was happening around you, right?
Didn't have distractions, not so many friends to see, no family to see. It was just us doing what we wanted to do. Maybe it's a surf sesh, maybe it's go throw the Frisbee at sunset and then get our stuff done.
Yeah. It all boils down to, I think, people comparing themselves to other people, right? So like when your environment is bustling around you and you're seeing X, Y, and Z things happening and things moving, people going from here to here, and you're reading about this person did this, this, and this, and all of a sudden you feel that fire under your ass, but you're comparing yourself under some other person's circumstances. You know what I mean? So going out to Mexico and the pace of life, like you said, is completely different. You really get to internalize and like focus on your own pace and the things that matter to you, and that's super important too. I think Corona just kind of kicked people into gear on that too in general, where like pace completely changed, and a lot more time alone in your room by yourself, quarantined, to think about, why was I doing X, Y, and Z things in these ways before, when the pace of life was fast, and maybe I don't need to do them exactly like that. Maybe these things aren't as important as they seem to be at the time. Maybe I need to take inventory on things that truly are important to me. So I think that's, to me, I mean, that definitely happened to me early on.
In the COVID?
Yeah. And just kind of this like nice redirect in a way towards what matters. And I think that a lot of people shared that experience.
So the COVID like thought process, like your alone time in your bedroom, got you to start walking more? Or what exactly was the result of, like, what were some of those changes?
Dude, everything comes down to it's because I'm walking more. Yeah. Really? All the success, everything that comes to, I mean, just my healthy, family life, my girl, it all is just because I've been walking around.
Wow.
It's a lot you can see and do and
just from walking.
Just from walking. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I today went on a walk and I brought my phone and I said, I've got a podcast with Kosher today.
Right.
What do I want to talk to him about? And I wrote down 6 or 8 bullet points as I strolled walking around watching kids play hoops and skate and do different things. I sat in the sun, got the body moving.
Dude, can you imagine just...
Also fasted this morning, haven't eaten today. It's 1:30 p.m.
It's just maximum productivity.
I'm dialed in, man.
Yeah, just dialed. I can't even imagine seeing you walking around with a notepad.
No notepad.
Dialed?
Phone.
Oh, okay. Okay.
One note.
Because that would be too much.
Huge life improving application.
Yeah, because you talk about comparing yourself to others like that. I would see you walking with, doing notes and just dialed, having fasted all day and just being like, man, this guy, I just want to be like this guy. You know what I mean?
No,
and that'll make me feel bad.
Well, if you saw the
I'm
pizza that my girlfriend and I made at like midnight, 12:30 last night.
Nice.
Threw a pizza in the oven.
Yeah.
That's why I'm fasting. My stomach is like, dude, what?
But it was cauliflower crust, though. Let's be honest.
You saw that it was cauliflower crust.
Was it?
I don't think so. It was just like
I just felt like you would do that. Yeah.
No, I'm not that healthy. But
dude, speaking of pizza, tell me about this. I want to talk about vision.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with pizza. Does your vision, does it change on like a frequent basis or an infrequent basis? Does it change at all? Or does it always stay the same?
Vision for my life?
Just vision for, just that North Star kind of like, here's why we're doing all this stuff.
I think it's clarified for me. I always had like, what I would say is the seeds that were being nurtured and growing when I was 16 and I was starting to think about what I wanted to do with my life, how short life is, like what it means to be a person, what legacy I want to leave behind. I was actually thinking about this today on my walk. Over the years, just consuming more information from other people that are wise, seeing how the world works, I've started to be able to apply more accurate words to like what it is that drives me, and to really embrace the fact that I am passionate about like telling stories, being outside, having these meaningful connections with friends and my family, and I've the values have been the same, but I've realized and I've aligned my actions more with my values,
just good,
which naturally leads to just a more happy life.
Yeah.
So there's not really much disconnect between like, I don't wake up and kick myself for anything because I feel like I'm on the right path. So that's, I don't know, to answer your question. Vision changes. The vision's opaque and blurry. I can't even see what I'm going to be doing in 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
There's a number of different potential good outcomes that could happen, but I don't reconsider really. I feel like I've been kind of like chugging along for a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
I love that. I share that. I think it does change from time to time. It is hard to explain. It's not like, oh, my vision is, a house in this place with these. I don't see it like that. I just kind of, it's almost more of like a feeling and a level of like, just a level of happiness and like self-approval, or I guess, it's mindfulness, like an elevated level of mindfulness. I don't know. It's just, I don't know what it actually is ultimately, but it does, I think it does refine itself and become clearer through life. And, I guess I don't completely change my reasons why, my values, my vision and all those things, those stay the same. But I would agree with you. It gets clearer the more, you stick to your values and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of all over the place. I wasn't ready for you to flip it back.
That was a good question though.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking it, man.
Yeah.
Keeping me on my toes.
Yeah.
I think about these things a lot, just in terms of like, am I doing the right thing? I think there's a balance to be had. And, if you're constantly assessing, am I on the right path? Is it working out? Especially if you want to try and do something that's hard. Like I want to work for myself. I want to continue to like grow as a storyteller.
Yeah.
And those things take a lot of time, and I'm willing to like be on this journey because I enjoy every single day, regardless of if I'm like living some actualized reality that's like my goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I think about it. If I woke up feeling like I was in the wrong place doing the wrong stuff, I would not be motivated to, spend my Saturday, for example, having a podcast conversation.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great point too. So yeah, if you're ever questioning whether you're doing what you're doing is the right thing or things like that, or if you're ever feeling like those little I guess those like little feelings of like, man, this isn't it. If you're not listening to those, that's when things get tough, right? That's when you're headed down the wrong path. But if you're like too overly neurotic and like type of person that just goes like, I don't know, is this the right thing? Then that's different.
That's
but
also,
like,
there's a balance.
Yeah, there's a balance.
It's tough when you're growing up, when you have parents and also your society and just where you are in the world, at least in our communities here. It's like, you're going to play sports, you're going to go to school, then you're going to go to college.
Yeah.
I never I mean, looking back on it, I never really made my own decisions of like major life decisions till I was 23 years old, and I was forced to, basically. And I just think it can be hard to like kind of take ownership of your own path when other people are constantly telling you like, oh, this is the safe thing to do, and oh, don't do this, and I don't know. There's a lot of influence from not only comparing to ourselves, but like other people's messaging towards us. And
it is amazing how many people, especially in the early phase of your life, tell you what to do.
I've had people be like, you have to do finance and accounting. It's the only business major. Right. And I'm like, this I'm studying management.
Yeah. That's insane. I've actually never thought of that. Like what from high school through college, through, I mean, your parents, your people, authoritative figures, coaches. I mean, you need an element of that in life, of course, but like it's always just pounded into you. Like this is how to do it. And this is the way to do it. And I think then when you're on your own and you have less of that, then there is that feeling of like, what do I do? You know, like now what do I do? Yeah.
We condition ourselves to just listen to other people tell us what to do. And then once you get to like post college, people have like big freakouts.
Exactly. Like existential types of like, what is this? And I think it's also like, makes things seem way harder than they actually are when you have guidance and then it's gone. You know what I mean? It's like, well, this starting a business or getting a job in this, like these things have to be hard, or like this must not be easy, and there's got to be these, you know, all these hoops to jump through according to the way I grew up and doing things the right way. I don't know, you know, it's just kids need to maybe have more autonomy growing up and being put in situations where they get to decide how to move forward and kind of creative think their way through issues.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I ask most of the guests on Adventure Creator Podcast about kind of like life growing up and how they originally found the current passion that they're focused on in their life.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the premise for the whole thing. And one of the things that I've been overwhelmingly surprised by in terms of how often people say this is they'll say, oh, my parents always told me I could do anything. They supported me in what I wanted to do. They nurtured my passion for playing with my hands and doing art or whatever, and actually pushed their kid towards what their like soul wants them to do. And now they're super passionate, and there might be like not necessarily extremely successful yet, but they have good mental health. They're on a path that they're happy about.
Yeah.
They might not be as like financially stable. Some of them are more. Like I had a dude on my podcast who's, you know, he's like big on Apple music producer. Like if he didn't follow his passion, you know, he's driving a Tesla. He's like makes a solid amount of money, and he's living his like true dream life while also like supporting himself. Anyways, I just think awesome. It's really interesting how important it is for the people that we look up to like really tell us we can do what we want with our lives. And if someone's telling you their perspective, that's fine, but it might not be useful feedback. Like it might be feedback, but you have to distinguish between, oh, this is something someone's telling me, especially when they're like successful and they have conviction in what they're saying. They're like, son, this is what the key to success is. And you're like, well, actually I'm going a different direction.
Yeah.
You have to have that kind of the confidence to say, no. Like I'm 26, you know, I've seen some things now. I can make my own decisions.
Well, yeah. And then totally.
And also be open and curious and willing to take feedback. It's just a balance.
Like if someone comes up to you and says, Kyle, and they're, let's say 20 years old and they're about to graduate college and they're really interested in doing video work and they've seen what you do and they admire it. And they said, Kyle, how do I get started, man? Tell me, like, can you tell me something about, you know, how you got started and what are the 3 things I need? And how are you going to tell them that? Are you going to tell them this is how to do it? Or are you going to tell them this is how I did
it? I would tell them this is how I did it.
Right. That's the thing. I think that's the thing too that we have to take in as we get older and we're able to have some conversations with people who are a bit less far along than we are. It's like, stop talking at people like this is the way to do it and say like this is how you could potentially do it. Take some nuggets if you want or don't. Like that's the thing, you know. It's up to you whether you see any value in this path that I took. It's insight. Use it the way you want to use it.
Yeah.
And I would also
reference the hundreds and hundreds of podcast conversations I've been a part of and edited with Chase Jarvis Live and various other podcasts. I've heard so many of these stories be told that I can pluck and basically like create data in my head and be like, okay, I've heard this story so many times. There's got to be some truth in it. Like if you hear someone say something one time, it's like, maybe that's just their perspective. But if you hear 50 different people that are at the top of their craft all say that
find those common
you have
threads.
to ignore the haters, for example, you have to have a practice that like you get things done and be productive. Like there's some of these like base blocks at the base of the pyramid that I would recommend to somebody that is just getting started with something.
Right. Some of those foundational aspects
stuff that I didn't necessarily learn myself, but that I've been able to curate from other people.
Right.
I am a firm believer in you're part of the Symphony team, so I want to talk to you about Symphony. But the whole idea of information sharing and knowledge sharing is huge. Like if you have someone in your life who's willing to actually give you the information, like I could tell you, I joined a networking group, bought a camera, got this software, and like started doing work for free, started just putting myself out there. And it built momentum. And next thing you know, I'm getting some slightly bigger clients. I'm meeting someone like yourself. We're starting to work together. I mean, a lot of work that I did in my early video stuff was through you, you know? So I think just kind of educating people on some of those actual tangible things that you can do to get started. I'm fired up about that. And I think that helps people feel like they're not alone, even if they are alone in their business. There's other people that are dealing with the same thing in their own business, and they're just willing to like share the information. Like I'm willing to share the information for sure. Anyone who hits me up and asks these questions, I'm going to try and shoot straight and give it to them right.
Absolutely. Like you said, in this generation, in this age, there's so much more idea sharing happening, and there is because of mediums like this, right? And like we're not big podcasters or anything, but here we are sitting down like talking into mics. It's like people are going to listen to us on the back end. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I think the big thing too is if you're getting a lot of your kind of insights and things from people like us or just content creators of any sort. There's so many of them out there. More so now than ever, you really need to like fact check people's backgrounds and see really whether they actually are.
Don't look into my background.
Walk the walk, and after they talk the talk. But dude, I never. Nothing's ever a secret for me. I think I would be willing to tell anybody anything about how I got started and how I got to this point. I'm not going to ever hold anything back. I think that's just such a detriment to yourself and to others. It
goes towards the whole thing you were talking about of like doing free work and paying it forward and expecting it to come back to you. Yeah. Like if you put good stuff out there, like someone that you might teach something might circle back to you in 5 years, having after applied that knowledge and be like, yo, you helped me navigate this thing. And now they're on their own path. Like
exactly. And that stuff happens. It's just a web of those things happening at all times. If you have integrity, if you build trust with people, and if you're an honest, human individual, and you say what you do what you say, and you say what you do, and all those things, and it's linear. Whether you're talking to a friend, whether you're talking to someone that you work for, whether you work with, or a client or a mentor, it's just you're always undoubtedly you. That's so impactful and so important, and those things come back around. I mean, that's a huge value to me, I think. Like, especially today more so than any other time, it's so easy to be something that you're not or pretend like you're something that you're not. So having that value of just true honesty and integrity is huge, I think. And it goes a long way.
I agree. Yeah. There's a little anecdote that I will insert here. I was listening to a podcast, or I was in a class. Those are the main sources of information for me. But anyways, there was a study done in like the 70s that, it was a 40-year cohort study, basically following students or people. I think it was college students in like the 1970s, 1980s. Yeah. And then they they went to different college students, same year, same schools, like 40 years later, and compared like what their values were between 1970s and 2010s or whatever it was. And they found that, true companionship was one of them. Like true friendship, companionship was not that valued back in 1970. Like there's other things like a comfortable life, an adventurous life, or like financially stable life. Yeah. true companionship was like number 7 or 12 or something like that. I'm totally butchering the story, but fast forward to 2010s, they asked kids, what do you value? College students, like what are your values?
Yeah.
True companionship's like number 1.
Wow.
Number 2.
Why do you think that went up?
The theory or the thought is that back then it was almost like we all had a lot of like close people in our lives, but today in 2010 times with social media, you might have like more friends, but not as many like true relationships with those people. And like,
it's not very deep.
Like what you're talking about, like someone who you truly trust, they'll be there for you even when it's not convenient for them.
Yeah.
Like those people are few and far between, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think we value that more now than we did back then. They almost took it for granted. Yeah. Because there's less of it potentially.
Totally buy that. 100%. Yeah. I'll take that all day.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, that's, social media, man. And I kind of go back and forth on this myself. It's like I work in social media, but there's honestly a lot of really shitty aspects of social media.
Yeah.
Like really socially detrimental aspects of social media that could create long-term issues
that are creating
long-term issues for society. And on the other side of it, there's just an amazing level of connectivity that fosters deeper connection if used right. You know what I mean? Like you could meet someone halfway across the world, message them, learn about their lives, see some, pictures of what they do and them surfing, whatever. And then you go and hang out with them and create a deep connection. It's awesome. And social media is responsible for fostering that.
Yeah. Or just knowledge sharing.
Or like knowledge sharing.
You can listen to someone like Gary Vee or Chase or whatever.
Yeah. Inspiration.
Change your life in a positive direction through something that you would never have been exposed to otherwise.
Right. And then there's the dark echo chamber aspect of it where you get fed misinformation on a repeated basis and takes you down this terrible rabbit hole of false reality. It's crazy how like two-sided it can be. And yeah, I guess that's something that I think back, do I really want to ultimately for the next 15, 20 years of my life be a part of something that's what's going to happen with it ultimately? Who knows? But
are you thinking about any ways that you can leverage, like you told me before this conversation, not to mention names, but one of your clients like straight up dropped Facebook. They just stopped doing Facebook advertising.
Yeah.
For what reason again?
Yeah, they dropped Facebook advertising for purely political reasons because of the censorship that's been happening on a couple social media platforms, but they were doing quite a bit on Facebook and decided that they didn't want to play a part in that anymore.
What do you think about censorship on social media?
That's a huge can. Yeah, it's interesting. I think general censorship on social media is not a good thing because that's holding people back from saying what they are allowed to say. I mean, there's freedom of speech in this world for a reason, or in this country for a reason. And that's technically in all fundamental aspects of stripping that. It's stripping that, you know what I mean? It's taking that away. And I think it sets a precedent when giant companies like Facebook or Apple or whoever can pull content or pull businesses, applications, whatever, away that don't follow rules that they lay out. Now, I mean, the interesting part too, vague rules. The interesting part too is that, like take Twitter, for example. Twitter has, and every other social media platform has this as well, a series of private policies, right? Like privacy policies and just different policies that govern the way that you use the application. And Twitter has, I believe, like a 3 strike you're out policy where the first time your account, you're slapped on the wrist. The first time you go against their policies, you're slapped on the wrist. The second time is a suspension. The third time your account's removed. I think that those things they've always been in place. And like take Donald Trump, for example, and him getting removed from Twitter. Those policies that he went against have always been in place. So is it censorship at the end of the day, or is it just Twitter enacting policies that revolve around censorship? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's kind of it's a huge debate, obviously, because that's always
they said
been
that
there.
He incited violence, because that's where the line is always at.
Yeah,
or it's, I guess, where I think it should be at is like you can say anything. My personal opinion, as long as it's not causing harm to other people. It's the same thing with you can believe anything. As long as you're not harming other people, that's the whole foundation of this country.
Definitely.
So yeah, it's a really interesting question. I've seen people say on one side, it's like Twitter's a private company, Facebook's a private company. They can do what they want with their platforms. Free speech is not something that's allowed here. And that's just the way it is. Screw off.
Okay.
And I think that's a convenient thing to say when the other team's guy is getting censored or someone you perceive as the bad man is being censored. But when you have someone that you look up to and you're like, wait, why are they being censored? Like they have some good ideas. They might be flawed in some other ways, but it's more of like, it's convenient to say, let's ban people and censor people when it's like, you think it's a good thing for the world. But I also agree with you. It's a very slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope. I think the problem ensues when there's an authoritative figure saying who gets to talk and who doesn't get to talk, right? Like a centralized authority saying, shut up and please continue. That's the problem. I think if there's a well-governed and there's a set of rules that exist, policy on Twitter. And if they're well-governed and properly governed and someone goes against the 3-strike policy, they're out. That's fine. As long as that is consistent, right? Across the board. And I'm not saying it in the case of Donald Trump, it was or was not consistent.
Yeah, we're not going there.
We don't need to dig deeper into that. All I'm saying is that there just needs to be a status quo that's held across the board for all people, no matter what, right? Just a level of accountability that not picking and choosing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is interesting because you're almost like helping sell Facebook's products,
right?
Because the more people, like you'll bring in clients that might put their money in traditional PR or in LinkedIn ads or in whatever, and you're going to help them decide like this is the right platform for you. Of course, like you're basing that on whether it's going to be beneficial to the client or not, and who the audience is and whatnot, and the type of creative. But that's it. No, it's interesting. I didn't even think we were going to go this direction in the conversation, but like the fact that you're thinking about it is notable. I think like as a business owner in this area, it's like, you're considering your overall role of your business, which I think is cool. You always have to take a step back and be like, to what we were talking about earlier, like, what am I doing here? Like, is this the right like path? And is my vision the same as it was when I got started?
Yeah.
So that's fantastic, man.
Yeah. That all's just kind of happening.
You're so cool.
Thanks, dude. Yeah. No, you're cool, man. No, but I mean, there's a lot going on with Facebook right now. A lot of sketchy stuff, right? There's a lot of, our conversation has evolved along that same line of Facebook being sketchy, like talking about, or just social media in general, talking about some of the downfalls and echo chambers, talking about censorship. And then you also have this antitrust thing that's going on with them and Apple, and that's actually different. The antitrust thing is just the antitrust thing where they have essentially a monopoly on viewership, right? And they're trying
Facebook.
and trying to split Instagram out from Facebook is really what's going on there. And then you also have,
and Facebook's like tying their businesses together even more by making the chats go across all the platforms. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have.
So you can send a message in a Facebook Messenger and it shows up on somebody's WhatsApp. Yeah. Maybe from Instagram to WhatsApp to Facebook.
Omni-channel messaging. Yeah.
Slippery slope, man.
Yeah, and then they also got something going with Apple right now, which is a very interesting topic and something that is very prevalent in our day-to-day right now, which is that in iOS 14, which our phones are, if you have the most updated iPhone for iOS, it's iOS 14 right now. They're about to release like a 14 point whatever, 5, 6, 7, that essentially empowers the user to have more ownership over their own data and understanding over what's going on with their own data. So right now there's like a health app on your iPhone. Now there's going to be essentially that, but for your data. And you can open that up and see right now what websites have cookies on you that are tracking you, where the top 5 most recent, I don't know, all this kind of information. And then every time you open an application, like if you're about to open Instagram for the first time after downloading the app, the software update, Instagram it'll prompt you with, do you want to let Instagram track your information? Or to some extent, there's a lot of potential downfall or upside depending on how they say or present that question, right? Like if they present it as it sounds bad to say yes to tracking, then people won't do it as often. But if it's like, do you want to let Instagram track you to be able to like recommend the best product, blah, blah. If it sounds like, yeah, it sounds good, then it could be fine. But anyway, so that's going to come out soon.
Like it's all about how you look at it.
It's all about how you look at it. Yeah.
You could easily spin a reality where it's like, there's no downside to letting them track us, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Or you could be like on the other side, which is like, I don't want to be tracked for any reason ever.
Yeah.
I think most people are somewhere in the middle.
Totally.
If they really were educated on what is happening with their information.
I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that comes out of the consumer, like just consumerism in this age online, being able to get served relevant items. There's some element of luxury to that. And it's a nice thing
to get an advertisement for a product that's like something you would actually use and it's super interesting. It's new and maybe even a decent price compared to something you might buy anyways. Like
it's almost like having like a person that like shows up at your door and they're like, hey, I heard you talking about like how you needed this thing. Here it is. And it's like, oh fuck, like I really needed that thing and I'm going to take it. But like, you're weird. Why are you watching me? Like, what are you doing? Are you listening to what I'm saying?
Little analogy.
Yeah. So it is kind of, it's hard to have I don't know. Some people are really against it. It's funny. You ever hear when people are like, you know, like people are always like, well, I don't say anything weird, or like, I don't give a shit if someone knows what I'm doing every day. Like, I don't got anything to hide. It's like, that to me is the dumbest rebuttal ever to like being tracked. It's like, yeah, well, would you want someone just watching over your shoulder at all times of the day while you're doing anything?
And just trusting that they're not going to do anything with that information? Like,
yeah,
I don't have that level of trust in major corporations personally.
Yeah, I was just house sitting somewhere with my girlfriend and they had like Amazon Alexas all over the house. And
people do that now.
All of a sudden, like you'll just be walking around and like the little blue thing will like, the little light will like go in a circle. It's like, the fuck what are you doing? Yeah, you walk by it and it's like listening to what you're saying and shit.
Giving I don't know, man. With 5G.
No, all that stuff.
I'm kidding. It is interesting. I did a poll on my Instagram story after my buddy did, and I saw this post that he made. It was like, basically, Apple installed a feature on the phone that allowed your phone to be tracked for COVID exposure.
Oh, yeah.
So you would always be tracked, and if you go to a location where retroactively they find out there was a COVID case there, you might get an update like, hey, there's a case of COVID in your area. Did you see when I posted about it?
Yeah.
And I posted like, do you mind being tracked or not? I obviously loaded the question on one side rather than be like, is it okay to benefit from the, you know, beautiful features of COVID tracking? No,
which is loading the other side.
I asked the question, said, are you okay with being tracked or not?
Yeah.
And the results were what I would expect. 75% of people said no, I would not like to be tracked. 25% said yeah. A couple people messaged me directly, including your boy Dave Lovis. Lovis?
Yeah. Lovis.
He was like, dude, I just like being tracked, so I have the information on where COVID's at and like if it's in my neighborhood or whatever. I was like, oh, that's like a fair reason. Like, I guess that makes a lot of sense. Like, it's not as simple as being like, anyone who thinks getting tracked is okay is an idiot. Like, that's not what I would say at all. I would say, look, we all just have different perspectives. Some people are more okay with having their data and privacy available to certain entities and some are less.
Yeah, I would argue that a lot of those people that are like, no, you can't track me, would love to know if there's people in their area that potentially have COVID to be able to safeguard themselves from it. So it's like, I think a lot of people who are against tracking actually, maybe they don't realize it, are like actively reaping and seeking the benefit
if you use Google Maps
information.
For example, up-to-date traffic on Google Maps is only possible because everybody on the highway has Google Maps and they're tracking all those cars. So you can get live updates. Like the other day, there was a BLM protest on I-5.
Yeah.
Alondra was 5 minutes from getting back and took her an hour to get home.
Right.
Like if she had, she had actually leveraged the technology that was available.
She just didn't use the map.
She didn't use the map. Yeah. She just got on the highway.
That's
and was
a whole different conversation. Yeah.
Maybe she did use the map. I think it took her that way. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah. It just took her right in there.
I love traffic updates.
Yeah.
It
gets you going.
Saves you a lot of time. I'm a big fan of saving time.
Yeah. Huge fan of optimizing time.
I'm fascinated by this conversation too. I think what I see as like the biggest issue right now is this mind virus that's going around, that people are apathetic to others' situations in life. Like I personally can sit here and say, somebody who's like really fearful and like hates Donald Trump and they're fearful of COVID, like those tend to be politically together,
which is
ridiculous, of course. But like that kind of category of person, I can empathize with them, be like, I understand where you're coming from. Everyone in the middle, yeah, I could have a conversation with each of them, not judge any of them. And also with the rabid Trump supporting anti-mask guy, I could talk to him and respect him and hear his perspective or her perspective. So I think what's at risk right now more than anything,
the lack of apathy, or
the lack of empathy.
Excuse me. Yeah.
The increased apathy towards other people who don't necessarily think the same way as us.
Backwards. Yes. Yeah, I would agree. And that, I mean, it's just that's why I feel like the divide politically is deeper than ever right now, is because there's this crazy if then because thing going on where if you say this, then you believe this, and you also believe this because of this, right? It's like if you don't want to walk into QFC with a mask on, then you must be a racist.
Yes.
It's like, what, dude?
Yes.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying right now, this didn't happen to me. This is just a random example.
That's a common example.
And
they'll say stuff like that on the news. Like,
or if you're a racist,
categories
then you
of
do
people
this.
are at fault for COVID spreading because they don't wear masks.
Right.
That's the narrative.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Or if, I just all these sorts of things. Right. And it goes on either side. Right. Like, and, what you were saying earlier, having empathy for everybody's perspective on different things is, I feel like, a lost art, especially now. And like, if you are sitting down with somebody who has different political views than you in this day and age, there's a good chance that so one of y'all is gonna stand up and leave, like a lot of people in our generation would, right? Like, if I don't say things that you want to hear right now and that you agree to and you support, then you're the worst person ever. Like, it's like there's no middle ground. In reality, what should be happening is just like, okay, yeah, like you have a different perspective than me. I understand that. I'm going to offer my perspective, and whether or not you agree with it or not, who cares? We'll just let that bygones be bygones. At the end of the day, do I like you or do I not like you as a person? Those are different things in your political views that shouldn't always be involved. And I just hate how divisive that is right now. It's like you really have to be on the same team in order to get along, it feels like, these days, which is a bummer.
And it is a bummer because I love having conversations where I'm not necessarily disagreeing in a negative or unhealthy way, but just having healthy debates. I love having healthy debates. Last week we had a little brunch over here, and myself and a few other guys were just kind of like going back and forth on some of these philosophical topics and things like even around COVID and things. Like, some people, it's just like, I don't want to hear it. You mentioned that. I've heard enough. Don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I've been out of the country for a while, and also I just have a need for just like this like verbal kind of like exchange of information. It just fires me up so much.
Yeah.
And we were talking about philosophically, there's going to be viruses, for example. Are we going to continue to try and solve them from the top down through vaccines and pills and medicine and government orders? Or are we going to educate people and actually have them learn how to take care of their own immune system and their own body on their own, so that the virus won't impact us as badly like it did because we're so unhealthy?
Totally.
And there's kind of like somewhere in the middle, I think, is the right answer. But the party that I was talking with, these guys were hardcore on the side of like, let's just, the vaccine is the answer. Let's just make sure we can get the vaccine to everybody. And I was more on the side of like, and they had a good argument, because that's the urgent need, right? If COVID hits, you're not going to be able to educate people and change their health.
Vitamin D is not going to fix COVID after it's already hit.
Right. But that was the argument back in March. If you told people that COVID was going to continue to affect us for more than a year, then it might make more sense to say, oh, so you might be exposed to COVID in 9 months or a year from now. Yeah. You can do a lot in 9 months or a year to be a healthier person.
Totally.
So that was kind of where I was coming from. I was like, we can use these like bottom up educational things to have people's health improve.
Yeah.
And battle against this. Hola.
Hola. Yeah, it's so hard to qualify that. I think that's why people have a tough time with it. It's like, to what extent is, doing X, Y, and Z things going to truly like help me fight against the pandemic? Like, that's bullshit. You know what I mean? But hey, if you're exercising, if you're taking care of your immune system, if you're taking vitamin D, back to that, you're taking zinc, if you're taking some of these supplements that you're naturally just in our lifestyles lacking.
Yeah. Up here in Seattle for sure.
Especially in Seattle. Yeah. I'm going to take my chances on that a lot more than I am saying, fuck it, I might as well just
wait for the jab.
When the vaccine's coming. Yeah. It's like, you can do both. I mean, there's a balance. There's so much more balance in life than people give it credit for a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's black or white, it's red or blue, it's whatever.
When you have conversations in person, then you realize like, oh, these like narratives that are in mainstream, like media and social media, they're not the same of just the way that people are thinking on the actual ground.
Yeah.
Which is always exciting for me. I'm like, you can get a little down if you're like, oh, everybody's freaking out in these ways. I actually think, my personal opinion is that we're on one hand divided, yes, like politically, but on the other hand, I think most people agree on most things and have pretty good values, especially in this country. People want the best for their kids. Most people want to keep the environment protected. Yeah. Maybe not, I don't know. A lot of people care about these things. Yeah. And if you go to like Twitter or like a lot of like mainstream sources, they just prey on like the most extreme view versus the other. So that horse has been beaten to death a million times. But we could wrap this up a number of ways. It's been a fun conversation. Yeah. Just to hear about what's new with you. It's been a blast. Yeah.
It's been a good time.
And just to round out, make sure we didn't miss anything that I definitely wanted to ask you about. What's on your bedside table?
Ooh, those are fun questions.
Fun, huh?
That's a fun one. Yeah.
Yeah, I've started to ask that one.
What's on my bedside table, man? I have a clock.
Like a real clock?
A clock. No, what's a real clock?
Like a non-phone clock.
Yeah, non-phone clock.
Yeah.
I have chapstick. I have a book. I have a headband.
What's the book?
The book. What's the headband? The book is 1 Minute Manager.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you manage in 1 minute. You have meetings in 1 minute.
Yeah. The title is kind of shitty because then I say if everyone is asking what I'm reading and I say 1 Minute Manager, it's like, that's all you got time for? It's just 1 minute. Just gonna hit them with a 1 minute thing. No, it's an interesting book though. It's just about like finding those small opportunities to praise. I just made out with the microphone, to praise people, to redirect people when they're doing maybe the wrong thing, or and also setting short goals as well. So it's about kind of like more frequent, manageable, bite-sized management opportunities, and how to execute them.
Cool.
Just taking advantage of those chances to tell people, hey, nice job, did really well. Turn the podcast off. Nice job, you did really well on that. Or hey, maybe you could think about this a little bit differently. Here's my take on what you did there. So I don't know. I've never been a manager of people, and I definitely need to refine my skills on that. So that's on my bedside table. A candle is also on my bedside table, and floss.
Floss.
Yeah.
Like real, legit floss.
Yeah, floss. Like legit floss.
And explain to me how you use it. Like at what point in your day?
Before I go to bed.
But why would floss it not be by the sink in the bathroom?
It's usually it's usually the floss after I'm done with it. I roll it up into a little ball and I throw it on my nightstand. And then I forget that it's there.
No way.
Yeah.
So you are in bed flossing?
Yeah, I'm in bed flossing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, dude. Flossing, reading a book.
I love flossing, but I use the little green things, little picks.
Yeah. I don't believe those are really doing anything.
You got to make sure you work them in the right places.
And then they break, dude. They break.
You get a new one. What do you mean?
You
got to get the right brand, man.
That shit pisses me.
We just got a 750 pack from Costco. We're set till 2020.
750?
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. How long is that?
But yeah, those things are sweet. I didn't used to like flossing, and then I got those little green things.
Anyways. That's a fun question though.
Yeah. My friend Clarence actually told us about that question. And
you didn't make it up?
I've been starting to ask it. No, I didn't come up with it. Nothing I do is original. Sucks. Everything's taken from others.
I thought you came up with that on your own, dude. That's probably.
I came up with the idea to ask you. So
I'm just kidding.
There you go.
What else do you got? Do you have another fun one?
No, that's it, man.
I thought you said 2 questions.
Oh, did I say that?
Yeah. You said I have 1 question, then I have 1 more question.
I lied. We covered everything.
Cool. All right.
But yeah, it's been a blast, man.
Yeah, man, it's been fun.
Hour 20 and episode 53 of the pod.
Episode 53 in the books, dude.
You're officially...
Who is 50? I feel like that's a milestone episode.
The 50th was I went on a different podcast and then republished it on my podcast.
So it was you.
Me primarily. Whoa, me talking.
Inception.
Fascinating concept.
Yeah.
I get my takes off during the pod for sure, but this one was cool because it was like I could just go into deep detail on certain things.
Takes, yeah.
I talk for minutes at a time, you know.
Is there one that sticks out of the 53 to you? And
it's a tough question, man.
I know the 2 that we did were like phenomenal.
Yeah. And also, I got to always say, man, thanks for coming on as number 2. Because, you know, honestly, the first 10 people I had on the podcast were just like doing me a favor. Still, people are doing me a favor by giving their time to me in order for me to have these conversations. I like to try and deliver value back. Yeah. There's a lot of benefits to both people. One just being the fact that it's fun and it's like good practice and it's productive and healthy. But does one stand out? Which number? Yeah. Not particularly, man.
No.
There's 1 or 2. I shouldn't say this, but there's 1 that stands out in the opposite direction.
This is the worst one.
Just 1. I'll leave it at that. But no, honestly, 53, 52 of them have been fantastic. The other one was mostly just a lack of the fact that we were not face to face, and the other person was having like technical issues, and it was just it was really tough. Anyways,
yeah.
If you've listened to that one, you probably know which one it is. But yeah, no. I like how you asked me a couple questions.
One? So when you got Elon on?
Elon?
Yeah. Dude, was that Elon, that one?
Elon, no. He was got too stoned before he came.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That was crazy.
So funny.
That was a nutty one.
Elon.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic of conversation. But,
who's the coolest person you've ever had on the podcast?
Obviously,
don't say me, dude. I want to know besides me.
Coolest?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm not even lying. I'd say it's you.
No, coolest person. I said coolest.
I really believe if you're passionate about what you're doing, then you're cool.
Yeah.
That's what to me cool is.
Chevy's cool. Chevy was cool.
Chevy's really cool.
That was a good
Chevy
podcast.
Might be the coolest.
I was telling, honestly though, if Chevy's listening to this, I think you did a great job. I want to say that. I want to put that on the airwaves. Yeah. I listened to about 30, 45 minutes of it. I thought it was great.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Kid's an impressive guy.
Yeah. Straight up. Carving his own path.
Yeah.
I always love asking people.
Yeah. Works hard, dude. I've seen him in the gym just busting his ass 1,000 times. That's a kid that he'll say something and he'll do it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. He was awesome.
A guy. He's not a kid, but he's a grown man.
We think of ourselves as kids.
Yeah. He's a good kid. Good kid.
All right, we're done.
All right, man. We've overstayed our welcome, probably.
We've overstayed our welcome for sure.
All right.
Thanks for coming on the pod, man.
Cheers, dude. Thanks for having me again. Yeah. Number 3 in the books. Looking forward to the 4th.
Boom.